Every year, it feels like Luka Doncic is near the top of the MVP favorite odds. But come the end of the season, he just doesn't quite get there. He'll make the All NBA first team, but there's always been something holding him back from being that MVP just yet. Every preseason, he's projected to make that leap, but he just hasn't quite done it yet. But I have a feeling that if everything goes to plan for Luka and the Lakers, this could be his year to finally jump over that hurdle and become the most valuable player in the NBA. Let's take you back to when he got traded. The NBA world was in shock, and for good reason. You don't simply trade a player of this caliber who is still this young, especially in return for an aging, injury prone Anthony Davis. I love AD, but I don't feel like that's quite equal value, and that was the consensus by most, if not all, NBA fans. And no matter what the GM Nico Harrison tried to say to justify it, it just didn't feel justifiable. Especially considering that the year prior, Luka had led you to the NBA Finals. You didn't quite win, but even if you want to say this is not the guy that you trust to win now, he went and disproved you that the year prior. But one of the main points that Nico Harrison pointed out about Luka, one of the prevailing narratives about him was his lack of proper conditioning, in the way that that might set him back from becoming this number one, undeniable superstar, best player in the world kind of player. It was all about his conditioning. And you had even seen that in prior postseason runs in which Luka at times just seemed exhausted. Or when he would start out a season, he just didn't seem quite in the same shape that he would as the months progressed. So even if it didn't justify the move whatsoever, it did feel like the one thing holding Luka back was his conditioning. And I'm not one to judge. I think a lot of sports media members can be very, very quick to judge when ultimately Luka is a higher caliber athlete than they will ever be, than I will ever be. So it's all respect to Luka. I want to say that first over here on Save the Association. We'll try to do this a little bit differently. But yeah, I felt like if there's anything that was holding him back from being that MVP kind of guy, it was his conditioning. And even if it wasn't that bad, it set kind of a tone about him. There was an atmosphere around Luka about him just not quite getting over the top, about him needing something just a little bit more. Whether it was trying a little bit more in defense or having better conditioning so he doesn't get so exhausted. It felt like there was just something more that needed to be added. And you want to look at that season where he led the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Finals. In hindsight, I have seen fans say that Luka should have been the MVP of the league that year. But that's in hindsight because we know how skilled of a player that he was. But at the time, not only was poor conditioning perhaps affecting his play sometimes there, I think it also stretched out into the narrative around him. And no matter how much it affected him, because there was constantly that talk about it, there was just an atmosphere around Luka that he couldn't get over that top because he didn't have the conditioning, no matter how much it was truly affecting him. And there were moments where it really was, but there were also moments where he would go off for one of the best performances that you might ever see. But now, as we go into the next season, we're not going to be living in hindsight. We're going to be living in the now. And there's a lot of question marks about Luka and the Lakers, especially with the situation of LeBron James. Could he actually leave LA? It always felt as though this Luka move was to not only help them in the present, but help them in the future post LeBron. But how soon is that going to come? And it could come sooner than we all expected. It's just crazy to think that he could even get traded. That is even a possibility, even if it's very low. And as we go into the next season, though, I think there is a very good chance that we could finally see Luka Doncic get over that hurdle, become an MVP, and really prove himself with that conditioning to be motivated in the best version of himself that he has ever been. And that's a very hard mark. Luka Doncic is one of the best players, best talents that we've ever seen in the history of the association. But now he's got an extra chip on his shoulder. He's got a couple. Of course, there was the backstabbing by the Dallas Mavericks to move on from the franchise that you thought you were going to be there for life, that you thought had passed the torch on from Dirk Nowitzki to you, that you were going to be their keystone, and that just didn't happen. Traded you without warning, shopped you off in secret, and shipped you away. There's a chip on the shoulder there that they didn't believe in you. And man, when someone doesn't believe in you, all that you can do to better yourself is to believe in yourself. You have to build on that faith because when someone doesn't believe in you, that means that there is an absence of faith. But to fill that void, you have to do it yourself. and it sparks something inside of you. And I think Luka Doncic has a chip on his shoulder already from that trade. But now you've also got the circumstances with LeBron James. And look, if you are a basketball player, your mind is on the game first and foremost. You don't want these distractions, especially in a city with these big spotlights like Los Angeles. To have a distraction on you, that's going to draw attention away from all the good that you do. And so Luka's going to be motivated as well to put together some undeniable performances and shut down the noise, these talks of LeBron leaving. And if LeBron does leave, which I don't think is going to happen, but it is a possibility, then this is Luka's team. And that's another chip on his shoulder that LeBron didn't feel like he could win with Luka. So Luka's going to go out there and win himself. Anyways, I think there's a lot of motivation there from the betrayal, the backstabbing from the Mavericks, to the LeBron drama. And I think that is going to push Luka Doncic to heights that we have never seen before. From the reports I'm seeing, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe Luka, in terms of his conditioning, he seems to be in the best shape that he has been in an offseason in recent memory. Because, when it comes to the offseason, it feels like that's when the cycle starts again of Luka starting to get in poorer shape and then he's not ready for the start of the year. But I haven't seen anything really about that. If anything, I've seen positive signs from Luka every time I see him as I'm scrolling through X or Instagram or just looking out, uh, looking up recent news. Everything seems to be pretty positive. And he has also claimed his vertical is now higher than that 42-inch jump from his 2018 combine. That his vertical is as high as it's ever been since rookie Luka. And if you remember, rookie Luka was very, very athletic. And as time has passed with his conditioning stuff, you haven't seen that as much. You've seen him dunk less and less. But if he gets back into that form, that's dangerous because now he's polished. He is very skilled, in spite of at times his poor conditioning in the eyes of many people, in the eyes of GM Nico Harrison. And now, if you can merge that great conditioning as well as his mind for the game that he now has after playing in the NBA for years, that's a whole new level, a whole new frightening kind of Luka Doncic, and one that could be very, very dominant. And if that is the case, he could very well be the MVP of the league. He could finally solidify himself as the most valuable player in the entire association because for years, he just hasn't quite hit that mark. You go into the preseason, and it makes sense to bet on him to be the MVP, but for years now, he just hasn't quite hit that spot. And in hindsight, we can say he might deserve it, but hindsight doesn't matter when it comes to these accolades. The only thing that matters is what you're doing in the present. And going into the next season, I think Luka Doncic is going to be motivated. He's going to be hungry. He's going to have some good condition going on from everything that we've seen. And he could well put it all together to have his best season yet and be the best player in the world. A chip on his shoulder, better conditioning, more athleticism, and a knowledge for the game that has only gotten better with his time in the NBA. This could absolutely be the best season that we've ever seen coming up from Luka Doncic. And no matter what happens with him, whatever happens with the Lakers, they're going to be must see next season. And I cannot wait for the Luka Doncic Hollywood Luka experience. The lights are going to be brighter than they've ever been before. And I think number 77 is going to be ready for every challenge that comes with it.